Hey, Friendo, Steve here.
Hey, Larson.
And welcome back to Steve and Larson's Pro Wrestling Podcast, ruining pro wrestling podcasting since 2014. It's Wednesday, which means we are looking at your hottest of hot takes from the world of professional wrestling. This is a pretty packed Monday Night Raw that we had a couple days ago, and so I feel like there's going to be a lot between that and Money in the Bank. A lot to talk about. What's the first hot take today?
Well, we got a couple hot takes here we could discuss kind of in conjunction with one another. It's about John Cena versus CM Punk happening at Night of Champions. Jaden Cole here says first, Cena versus Punk should not happen at Night of Champions. Drew Bloom here says Cena versus Punk being at Saudi has killed my excitement for the match. There's several other hot takes in the thread. Essentially echoing similar sentiments.
What may I ask? Because I did not take you're the producer of this particular show. I didn't look at any of the hot takes. There was one I think that caught my eye that says something like Steve makes me laugh a lot. But beyond that,
I didn't notice that one.
I didn't see. It's a bummer. That's not the thumbnail.
Maybe next time.
Maybe next time. Were there any that were like, yeah, Cena and Punk at Saudi Arabia? I feel like that would be an actual hot take.
There were a couple saying essentially the fact that match is happening at Night of Champions is not a huge deal.
Okay. Oh, it means the match is not a huge deal?
No, it's the where it's happening, not a huge deal.
Oh, okay. So people are like, get over the Saudi thing, is ostensibly.
Kind of.
Is that what they're saying? So, I will say this. The Saudi Arabia shows have varying degrees of importance in terms of like what happens. Sometimes they're borderline Saturday night main events in terms of the level of importance. Sometimes they're like WrestleMania equal to or greater than. That's actually fairly rare.
Despite the fact that I say that quite often.
Yeah. I do think that it would have felt, for us old timers especially, it would have felt more significant, and I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. It would have felt more fitting, I guess, to be at Money in the Bank. Or even SummerSlam to a degree. I mean, you remember the Punk stuff went down between, June and the fall of 2011.
Mm-hmm.
And so, SummerSlam, Money in the Bank, I feel like those are the two for a match of this magnitude. So yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel that. I mean, they're probably going to do Cody at SummerSlam.
Yeah, it seems like Cody Cena at SummerSlam is probably the plan. I guess it also kind of depends on who wins King of the Ring. Like if Cody wins King of the Ring, and obviously that's what they're going to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that'd be pretty obvious at that point. Like I get the sentiment that I don't feel great still watching the Saudi shows.
Yeah.
We still endeavor to do a charity stream when we watch them.
We don't endeavor. We do every single one.
Yeah, every single one we do. So I understand the sentiment, and I don't know what percentage of the WWE's fan base just doesn't watch the Saudi shows. I don't know.
I would think it's probably insignificant. Probably a really small amount.
Maybe, yeah. But obviously, the sentiment that there was a level of disappointment with that match happening at Night of Champions was, I don't know what the exact percentage in terms of the comments and the hot takes thread, but there was several.
Yeah, I mean, even in the wider internet wrestling community discourse that I've noticed, whether, it's the little bit that I see on Instagram or when I load up Twitter once a day in the morning with some coffee and then quickly turn it off because it's garbage. But the overriding sentiment is like, oh, Punk and Saudi, he's a hypocrite. This is gross, et cetera, et cetera. So at the very least, from like that perspective, I think that's not, that's something that people have sort of glommed onto and have pointed out. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it is the sort of thing where it has become we've gotten so used to it that to point out the purpose of the WWE Saudi Arabia shows, in addition to Saudi Arabia making a play, I think for boxing is the next thing that they want to do in a major way. They obviously already have Live Golf there.
Yeah.
The sports washing thing. Hey, look at us. And don't look at all of our, the human rights violations that we've committed over the time. It's easy to kind of overlook that. That being said, with the state of everything, even in this particular country, and I don't mean to get too heavy on a pro wrestling show, but it's sort of like, yeah, everything's kind of in the shitter right now, and I don't know if it's ever going to not be in the shitter. Yeah, dude, I don't know. I mean, just from a WWE perspective, the Saudi shows to me, those are probably the shows where way past his prime Undertaker belongs and Goldberg belongs and, silly exhibition bouts that really don't matter belong.
DX gets back together. Yeah.
Right. I think to me, I'm like, that's where I would prefer my big matches. And this feels like it's a match that I'll ask you right now.
Sure.
What's the outcome of this match?
John Cena wins.
Right.
Via belt shot to the head.
Yeah. Yeah. No ambiguity to that. We know that.
Yeah.
If this was at SummerSlam or later on in the year, when storyline wise, it would have maybe made sense for Punk to be the guy to take that title off Cena. Oh, now this match has some added importance. But put this in there with the Randy Orton thing. Put it in there with all the other stuff that kind of, we know how it's going to go down. Maybe, just maybe, we'll get a story beat out of John Cena and what his mindset is. But, beyond that, it's just sort of like, hey, let's line up some people that seem like we need to do a Cena match for his last run.
Yeah, the obligatory nature of it. Yeah. If this had happened later in the year, maybe there'd be a bit more ambiguity in terms of the outcome. But the soonest John Cena is going to lose that title is SummerSlam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I wouldn't be shocked if he held it till Survivor Series, honestly.
Same. Yeah.
So, yeah, if they had done it, this match, I don't know, have a paper. I don't know what the rest of the pay-per-view schedule looks like this year. There's an opportunity to do something in Chicago. Have the match in Chicago.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Heck, even after Cena loses the title, has a bit of a face turn. Save this for his last match in Boston.
Yeah.
I can even see that, but in terms of having the outcome a bit more in doubt, there's no doubt about the outcome here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
None.
Yeah. I mean, this honestly, I probably would have preferred they flip the matches. You do Logan and Cena versus Cody and Jay in Saudi Arabia, and you do Punk versus Cena at Money in the Bank, just for the nostalgia, for the name value of the premium live event. Mm-hmm. They could put together a pretty terrific video package. Mm-hmm. Regardless, though, unless this was going to be a match that was like after the title run, during the title run, we know Cena's not going to lose it until it's Cody. Now, once we get past this match, okay, we'll be in territory where when is it going to happen? Who's going to line up next? Is he going to take on Rusev? Well, we know how that's going to go. Is he going to take on Sheamus? We know how that's going to go.
Yeah.
Cody, that's going to go a different way. We think that's a good chance that's going to go a different way, or maybe it won't. Then they'll be sort of unpredictable. But this, I guess, is just an opportunity for us to get, more in depth in terms of John Cena. Punk is going to face, if there's going to be any criticism in terms of Punk going to Saudi Arabia, he'll just have to face it and say something or not say anything. I mean, that's the hole he dug himself into when he called out the Miz for going to Saudi Arabia.
Mm-hmm. I got a hot take here from Canaldo Bruno. Says Ron Killings needs to beat Cena, not Cody.
If they just did things by like how cool it would be, then yeah, I'd be on top of the list.
or what potentially could be the most interesting story. Yeah, there's the potential there for Ron being the one to beat John Cena to be pretty darn interesting, and they'll explore that story to the extent that it approaches that level of interesting, but not fully commit to it, so that there's not a groundswell of support for Ron Killings to actually win the championship, because I doubt that's what they intend to have happen.
I do think, this is a situation where this is really a tangent, but when we talk about unfulfilled potential, when we talk about Bo Dallas and what they could have done with the Wyatts, when we talk about what they could do with Ron Killings, and we've talked about this many times, I think it's entirely possible, dude, that they're just not capable. I think that there is sort of a, the bell's got to ring. We got to wrestle. We've got 5 hours of programming, or 5.5 hours of programming that we have to book. And Triple H is not Charlie Kaufman. He's Paul Levesque.
Yeah.
And I think he's probably one of the few people on this planet who can 52 weeks a year provide relatively satisfying, albeit never living up to its fullest potential, because I don't know that anybody's really ever booked wrestling 52 weeks a year living up to its fullest potential. I think that the closest they got probably was the Attitude Era, because like every week it was like, holy shit, I got to tune into this. But even then it was like, back then it was 2 hours of programming.
Yeah.
Which meant an hour and a half ostensibly. And even then, jam-packing all that stuff, there was plenty of crap.
Oh, there's a lot of crap, yeah.
But like, I don't know if like, given what these people do and given all the different moving pieces, I don't know that it's possible. And that's why one reason I'd be actually kind of curious to know if it's something that a different writer like a Brian Gewirtz, if The Rock somehow in that fantasy land where The Rock took over and Triple H was ousted.
Well, I mean, did you watch a lot of Raw when Brian Gewirtz was the head writer there?
He did some good stuff.
All right.
There was some good stuff. He left right before it got really bad.
All right.
Like around 2009, 2010. Right. But I actually looked that up once and I was like, has this guy done it? No. And he was responsible for a lot of the better segments that existed. Now, how would that work as, in a Triple H role where I think it's a bit, obviously he was the head writer, but he wasn't Vince.
Yeah.
Triple H is now Vince, Mm-hmm. And so, and on top of that, would the wrestlers respect him? Would they respect his vision? There's a lot that goes into that role, which is why Triple H is uniquely suited to it.
Also depending on if Brian Gewirtz were to assume the head of creative, how that came to be. Like that unto itself, however he, got that seat, that could engender some resentment by itself.
Sure. Yeah.
Triple H is popular with the wrestlers. I mean, you have two examples there with Truth and the Wyatt Six. And like, obviously Vince had no idea how to harness the creative powers of Bray Wyatt, utilize them to their best. And as we saw with the Wyatt Six, they were introduced in this spectacular way. The genesis of their debut and seemingly what they were intending to do creatively on the outset was really interesting. It seemed pretty quickly they decided not to do it. Because at the end of the Chad Gable feud, Chad Gable was basically the same person. There was no evolution of the Chad Gable character as related to why that story was happening to begin with.
Yeah.
And maybe part of it is an unwillingness. I just think sometimes they're like, well, what is the end goal we have in mind for either the story, this performer during the course of this year? And if that doesn't align with what they got going on, then I just, I would be shocked if they didn't have Cody beating Cena already written in pen at SummerSlam.
Red marker.
Yeah. When the whole John Cena heel turn kicked off.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And they are not going to deviate from that.
Yeah.
Full stop.
Dude, you and I talk often about, or we have talked often about, how Vince was a guy who lived for moments. And a lot of the in-between stuff, just like it didn't matter. Well, Triple H learned under Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. It's not like there's a lot of people you can learn under, you know? Like, who did Heyman go under? Was it Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert, right?
Yeah, in ECW, yeah.
Right. He ain't around anymore to learn under. You know? Kevin Sullivan's not around anymore to learn under.
Dusty Rhodes isn't around anymore. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's Vince. That's who you're learning under.
Well, I mean, Vince Russo's still around.
Vince Russo's still around. But in terms of like active like pro wrestling companies, it's like these people. So, you know, I do agree that like guys like you and I, we can sit here and we can analyze and we can critique and we say, hey, wouldn't it be cool if? And it seems so natural to be like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if? But like we're not there and we don't know. And I can only imagine the one concession I can have, I can clearly have is this is a sprawling fucking thing they do.
It is, and it's all through the prism of a very specific thing in that
They have to have
these
matches.
storylines have to end in a wrestling ring, you know?
They have to have matches, yeah.
And like we, as outside observers, can see a storyline like the Wyatt Six, and like we could probably brainstorm 5, 6, 7, 10 ways where they can use the ideas that were introduced upon their debut within wrestling matches, or at least within stories that lead to wrestling matches. But then our background isn't wrestling, you know? Our background is we went to film school. We've analyzed movies and TV for years and years and years. You know, that's our background. So that's where we're coming to it from, is that we see a much broader canvas with which to, you know, create your art than a wrestling ring. And I wonder if I know a lot of the writers who are hired by WWE come from a variety of backgrounds in entertainment. They're not all just wrestling people that are, you know, brought into creative. There's TV writers. I'm sure there's people who've written movie scripts and stuff.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's all kind of filtered through the brain of Triple H, and his prism for everything is this has got to end in a match.
Well, yeah, and that's what it's wrestling. That's what it should end.
Yeah,
with,
it should be. Yeah, but I'm just
know?
saying if his viewpoint is always, well, it's got to be a match at some point, rather than, all right, how much of the story can we tell outside of the ring and then work it into the match, as opposed to the match as the end-all, be-all.
Getting back to this actual hot take, Ron Killings needs to beat Cena. When you look back on things historically, I don't know that would be the best way to go. 5 years from now, looking back and being like, well, there was a guy who was a comedy act for 20 years, and in his last run, he got serious, and that's the guy, he was 53, and that's the guy that we had beat Cena. We had him save Cena. I'm sure there is an HBO show somewhere out there where that could work, that kind of storyline could work. I don't think it's this, though. I mean, I just don't. I think when you look back 5 years from now, if you don't do, you know, if you do something, I think the most interesting thing you could do and have it historically make sense is Cena's face turn happens while he's a good guy, and Seth Rollins takes advantage of that. And Seth Rollins is the guy, or Drew McIntyre is the guy, or Cody's the guy. But like, you have to look back and be like, okay, this needs to be somebody who's been established as somebody that simply makes sense to beat Cena because it's pro wrestling. And when you look back, you need that level of opponent for it to make sense historically. Truth doesn't make sense.
If they had more time, they could get there. But they only have 19 dates left for Cena.
That's true. That's true. But you need a lot more time. A lot more time.
I feel like in terms of the fan base buying in, it's probably less than you might think.
Well, fans are silly. They'll pop for anything in the moment. But, you know, 5 years from now, we're going to look back and be like, yeah, that made sense. Yeah, I think you need a lot more time.
Yeah,
he just turned normal.
Yeah. I'm not saying he's going to beat Cena at SummerSlam.
He just turned normal like 2 days ago. Anyways, we have a sponsor for this show today, so let's talk about them.
Let's do it. Let's take a break. Get a word from our sponsor, Tempo. Summer is nearly here, Steve. It's on the horizon. And with all the barbecues and road trips and family vacations I got planned over the next couple months, thinking it might be tough for Larson to keep up with his healthy eating habits with so much going on. You know me. I need my protein in my life.
Oh, absolutely, man. And if you think you got to turn to easy meal solutions that may compromise your nutrition this summer, think again. Tempo makes staying on track easy, offering fresh, protein-packed meals that are ready to eat in just 3 minutes. Tempo's perfectly portioned meals takes all the guesswork out of eating well, so you can maintain your healthy lifestyle without sacrificing taste or convenience.
I see here that Tempo has new recipes each week, like barbecue pulled pork and sweet potato skillets, and sweet chili meatballs that are made with real nutrient-rich ingredients. And they also offer meals like their protein-packed options that fit my dietary preferences. I gotta get my protein every day.
Oh, absolutely, man. And for a limited time, Tempo is offering our listeners 60% off your first box. Go to tempomeals.com/raw. That's tempomeals.com/raw for 60% off your first box. tempomeals.com/raw. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Got a hot take here from Breen.
Breen the mode.
Says, Jey Uso's title run elevated the World Heavyweight Championship. Breen continues, I feel like Gunther and Damian Priest runs were okay, but nothing special. I felt the title drifted into the mid-card territory back when Jey wanted to start, but then started feuding with Rollins, teaming with Cody, Punk, and Sammy. The title got elevated back, which is why I thought Seth Rollins would be the next person to carry that title.
Buddy, I was kind of disappointed when Seth came out, dangled that briefcase to Cena and Punk, and even like Punk going after Cena and not, wanting that world championship. It's like, yeah, over the past month, 2 months, we've seen what that title can mean. And if Seth Rollins is going to send out his upper mid-card henchman, Braun Breaker, to retrieve the world title, and Seth's going to go after the Cena title, that is just the most definition of a pecking order right there.
Yeah, it is. The World Heavyweight Championship still a consolation title.
At this point, like, that's what it is.
It is.
And I don't know that it's going to go back to it, to that moment in time when people seem to want it. I don't know what's next for Gunther. I mean, is it just Sami Zayn at SummerSlam?
Seemingly.
Yeah.
We've seen that even as when Gunther was champion.
Do you think Triple H likes to have, I mean, obviously because Triple H, he was the guy, like the big gold belt was invented as a second title to be the Triple H title.
Mm-hmm.
This big gold belt is the Triple H title. He's got the undisputed title for the business, and he's got this one for him. And maybe he likes it kind of on the under.
That could be. Maybe. I don't know. But like at the same time, when they brought the World Heavyweight Championship and it was bequeathed unto him, whenever he had it especially, it was always positioned as the A title because he had it.
I'm not
Or if
saying,
he was feuding with somebody, that was the A feud because they were feuding over his title.
I have a good analogy for you.
Sure.
Because I'm not talking about like a 1-to-1, like, oh, it's a Triple H title, therefore he's going to make it the biggest. It's the Triple H, I'm going to have fun with this title and not worry about putting it out there in front of everybody because that's for the main event. That's the business stuff.
I mean, nothing about how he's booked that title for the most part is screamed fun.
Well, I don't know. He seems to like it well enough. I think, it's maybe it's the title to piss off the IWC. Because
oh, the spite title, huh?
Yeah, the spite title. Back when we were doing whatever we book fun WCW, fun wrestling WCW.
Yeah, like you're conglomerating a bunch of different stuff. But go ahead, yeah.
Well, appropriately enough. What was our favorite title back then?
It's 10 pounds of flesh.
10 pounds of flesh. It wasn't any of our world titles. It was 10 pounds of flesh.
But there was literally a 10 pounds of flesh division.
Yeah.
Every week we had to come up with some sort of monstrosity with flesh dripping off the bone.
Yeah.
To challenge for the title. It was on its own island.
Yeah, but we weren't going to send growth hormones to the Today Show. We weren't going to send any of those people to the Today Show.
Seth Rollins had that World Heavyweight title. He'd be doing the Today Show.
I know, but he's not. He's on the Undisputed Island, man.
When he had the World Heavyweight Championship, I guarantee he was doing media appearances with that title.
He probably was, but that was Triple H establishing it. And then he's like, you know what? I want my guy Gunther to be forever champion, so I'm going to make Gunther champion. Oh, these people love Jey Uso, but the internet says I'm wrong for elevating Jey Uso. We'll put it on Jey Uso. I like Damian Priest. He's like the most metal guy we have. Yeah. Put it on him.
Yeah.
I think it's a Triple H title.
Maybe. I don't know.
Let me ask you this.
All right.
What would he do? What could Triple H do with this title?
I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Finn Balor would win it.
And that would solidify it in your mind that this is definitely the Triple H having fun title.
This is the title for Triple H's dudes, yes. If Finn Balor, if that push comes through within the next 6 months and he wins the World Heavyweight Championship.
Yeah. He is so far away from that now.
But that's the litmus test right now.
There you go. All right, if Finn wins it, then we'll know.
I'll concede the point.
All right.
All right, you got a hot take here from Legal Forearm Shots.
Nice.
Says Gunther winning back the World Championship is best for business. Look, I like Gunther a lot. It's one of my favorite wrestlers in the world. The match on Raw against Jey was fantastic.
Ooh, we got a qualifier coming up here.
I don't know what's next for him. If his previous run as World Heavyweight Champion is any indication, I'm not expecting anything like really that good creatively. Unless they're going to start putting top-tier opponents in front of him.
Yeah.
Now, if he faces Seth, wins, which isn't going to happen. Drew McIntyre wins. I don't feel like Sammy is great.
Same
but
old.
We've seen it. We
like
saw it for the Intercontinental title, and we saw it for the World title.
Jey, Sammy, Gunther. They're locked in.
It's kind of been. That's who Gunther's been feuding with for seemingly ever.
Yeah, dude. I mean, there's a long list of mid-carders that you can totally see. Sheamus, Rusev, Sammy, Jey again.
AJ.
Yeah, that's going to be that division. That's going to be his field.
Yeah,
there'll be really good matches.
Yeah, it will be. But until he can beat someone or be in a feud with someone like Seth, like Roman, give us that. That's going to elevate the prestige of the World Heavyweight Championship. That's going to give him interesting feuds.
But Triple H doesn't want to.
No, he just wants his dude to have the title forever.
It's his favorite title.
Puts it on his dudes. Next hot take here from Fisher says Triple H long-term booking philosophy is hurting wrestlers' momentum. Guys like LA Knight and Karrion Kross, despite being super over, are not being pushed properly. There's a lot of people who are very upset with LA Knight not winning Money in the Bank.
That was probably the biggest gripe I saw. Yeah, across like the internet, both our community and the general internet wrestling community. I don't know what he thinks about LA Knight. He saw Jey Uso did not strike me as a Triple H guy, and it's not like he won the Undisputed title. He won the Triple H title. But he did. I mean, he won that. And Paul Heyman, in some recent interview, was saying Jey Uso sells this amount of merchandise. He brings this amount of tickets. He brings this amount of ratings. The quarter hours. Jey Uso, Jey Uso, Jey Uso. So with that being said, I don't know if Triple H would see the same thing in LA Knight. Like, he gets tremendous reactions, sells a lot of merch. I think he's probably on par with Jey Uso in the ring as a singles guy, because it's not like Jey is like all that great, but he's good. LA Knight's just on the wrong brand. I don't know. Like, by 2027, do you see LA Knight getting his hands on another singles title?
Maybe a mid-card title, probably not the world title.
You think he'd go back to the U.S. title?
Or get drafted to Raw and go after the Intercontinental title.
But not the world title there.
I just don't see it, honestly. I mean, not that I don't think he's... Like, I think he could be world champion. I just don't think that's how he's viewed.
Certainly seems that way.
Yeah. Same with Karrion Kross. Karrion Kross can't get his own story.
Yeah, here's the thing. You can't put as I like Cross. You can't put him and
They're
LA
in
Knight in the
different-
same.
Yeah, they're in different tiers in terms of
Cross needs to
popularity.
get to Austin Theory territory first. Let's start there.
Regarding this hot take about the long-term booking philosophy hurting wrestlers' momentum, it seemed like Theory and Waller actually had a little bit of momentum after that little story beat with Sheamus. Mm-hmm. Since then, they've been relegated to like background stuff.
Yeah, I know.
It's like Triple H's booking philosophy for a lot of stuff is spin wheels, development.
Yeah.
Spin wheels, development. And you get this development in a really short amount of time and then a lengthy spell of spinning wheels.
Yeah.
So now we get all these bits backstage where Waller and Theory are arguing in the background. At least they're getting that, so it keeps the story fresh in people's minds. But like this story really should have been over a year ago. You know, because it's not like extending it is bringing forth a lot of really good, interesting stuff. You're just extending it for the sake of extending it, probably because you can't find enough time on an episode of SmackDown or something. I guess they're on Raw now to actually further the story. So you just keep it in people's minds by having them argue in the background.
There are two guys that I can think of as it relates to this hot take in terms of booking philosophy hurting wrestlers' momentum, and it's Drew and LA Knight. I'm surprised that Drew isn't further along, and LA Knight, I think LA Knight's just on the wrong brand. You know, I think that he would have a chance at being Jey Uso, at being world champion if he was on Raw. But I think Sammy's in line ahead of him. And that's kind of it, to be honest with you. I feel like if he was on Raw, get Sammy out of the way, and LA Knight would probably get that title.
You know, but I don't. Well, here's the thing. After Punk loses to Cena, he's done with the WWE title for the time being. Mm-hmm. And if Seth gets it, Punk's going to want to challenge Seth for that title.
Mm-hmm. So for the world title?
Yeah, for the World Heavyweight Championship.
Yeah, I don't know where they're going to go with that. If Seth is back into it, then it's going to be Seth's title in perpetuity.
Well,
Seth Punk, yeah, right.
Yeah, Seth Punk, yeah, probably.
Maybe Seth.
Which takes even if LA Knight was on Raw, would take him completely.
That takes him right out. But as it stands
conversation.
now, and as that title has been booked over the past year, that could have been LA Knight's.
Could have been. I just don't. They don't really seem intent on pushing him to that degree.
I wonder. Let me ask you something. Do you think LA Knight is like Scott Hall, who said, "I never cared about the world title. It's a team effort. If the team pulls through, then we all win." Or is he more like I don't know, Ryback, who was always like, "I sold tons of merch. I got lots of pops. Why didn't they push me?"
I would guess it's somewhere in the middle. I don't know the man. Haven't read him. I read any quotes regarding him answering questions to whatnot. But you'd think for someone who's been in the business as long as he has, 20 years grinding, and finally making it to WWE and being one of the most popular people, it'd be pretty damn rewarding to be given a run with the World Championship. And I would be shocked if it wasn't a goal of his for that reason.
Yeah.
I don't know the man's ambitions. I don't know what he wants to do during his time in the business, but that would make sense to me.
I don't think there's any way he's not looking at these crowds and thinking to himself,
why not me?
I think put yourself in that position.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like as soon as your music hits and you have that crowd in the palm of your hand. Now, I'm sure maybe I think the only caveat is after grinding for 20 years and then finally getting there, maybe he's like, God damn, I'm living the dream. What the fuck do I care if I have the world title?
Could be.
And maybe especially like at our age. I mean, he's 5 years younger than us, or 7. But maybe at that age, I've been grinding for 20 years. All I care about is that fucking paycheck.
Could be.
And I know that all these reactions I'm getting guarantees that paycheck. And I don't care about the title because I get the reactions. It's the only thing that matters.
Could be.
That could be. I could see that given his age. I could see that.
That could be. Like I said, we don't know his ambitions. We don't know what his goals in the industry are before he, retires.
If he sees it as a prop or if he sees it as, hey, this is I'm being held down and I can make more money if I have that title.
Could be.
And because those are two very, I think, legitimate takes,
Yeah. Got a hot take here from Gorilla Mon. Here says Lyra and Becky deserve the next Hell in a Cell match.
Oh, yeah, this is a Punk Drew feud.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with this.
Yeah, I do too. Especially now that
me if they
Bayley
did
has
that
been introduced to the feud. You know, I imagine Bayley is going to try to start her own feud with Becky, given that Becky was responsible for laying her out ahead of the Mania match.
Yeah.
And if Lyra says, I need an Intercontinental title shot, I want one, I don't want anybody interfering, Hell in a Cell.
Yeah, that could be.
Could be.
Ronan the Analyst says, Dom has a higher ceiling than Braun Breaker, yeah. He already knows how to develop a character, is a better promo, understands the psychology better, and is building an all-round better in-ring skill set. So I'll make this comparison because I made it before. I think it was on WrestleJuice. Somebody said something like, Dom at the end of the day is going to have a better career than his dad. And I said, it's kind of apples and oranges because Dom is much more like his in kayfabe genetic dad, Eddie Guerrero. In his character, the way he wrestles, his personality, all that stuff is more Eddie Guerrero than it is Rey Mysterio. Rey was never like all that interesting and in depth of a character. The name Rey Mysterio, his his ability in the ring, the underdog stuff, and his presentation being a 10 out of 10, all contributed to what has now become basically a living legend career. Mm-hmm. Eddie Guerrero was a different type of legend. And I think Dom has the potential to have an Eddie Guerrero, at the end of the day, an Eddie Guerrero level career. Where do you see Braun Breaker? What's a comparable? You can make an easy comparison maybe to a Big Papa Pump, but I think that's kind of apples and oranges too.
Yeah, because Braun hasn't showed that level of personality yet.
He hasn't shown that level of like raw charisma. What about a Batista? Could you compare him to
the name
Batista?
I was just about to bring up? Batista, powerhouse wrestler who, through time and experience, developed the presence and the charisma and the mic skills.
And the depth of a character.
Yeah, depth of character. But, you know, as we've seen in Dave's Hollywood work, that's something he's very much interested in, is exploring character.
Yeah.
He seems more intent on being a character actor than a movie star.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Braun shares that kind of interest.
Well, let me bring this up. Because, again, it's a situation we don't know the guy. But given that he has been very reluctant to lean into the Big Papa Pump thing.
Yeah.
And he's been more interested. You know, we had like a fishing trip with him and Apollo Crews.
Yeah.
And I'm sure some of that is informed by Braun Breaker and his suggestions. I feel like he wants to be more of a in-depth personality than a one-note guy like his uncle.
I think he wants to be more grounded personality than a one-note character.
Which I think is kind of like, a grounded personality is, somebody who's got more depth to him. Sure. I think if he was given the option, it wouldn't shock me. Like, given what I've seen from his career, I would think he would probably want to be more Batista than Big Papa Pump. If he wanted to be Big Papa Pump, he could have been that by now.
Yeah, it could have been.
Pretty easily. I mean, he makes reference to the math stuff, but I always feel like that's because, okay.
Kind of feel like someone's like, hey, why don't you go do this?
Yeah, or he's like, he shows up, hey, I got a new album out. Play your greatest hits. Not even my greatest hits. It's my uncle's.
It's like I'm not a cover band here.
Yeah, right. Yes, no, that's exactly right. Seems like he's trying to not be a cover band.
Mm-hmm.
So who's going to have a higher seat? I think in terms of like, who do I think is going to main event more WrestleManias? It's Braun Breaker.
Yeah.
Like if that's the ceiling, but who's going to end up being a more interesting character? I feel like it's going to be Dom.
Probably Dom, because he's already showcased that ability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I agree with
if
that.
and when Braun, I mean, like right now, unfortunately, he's in henchman role. He's not given a whole lot of opportunities to showcase anything more than barking, and being intense.
His barking was pretty loud on Raw, though.
He did. But now if they start doing more backstage segments with Seth and his crew to really explore the character dynamics and who these people are and how they relate to one another, there's the opportunity to add some dimension to his character. It ain't happening now.
Ideally, they'll have Bronson Reed do more than just stand there with sunglasses on like he's Secret Service.
I know.
Like, I was really disappointed in that. I was like, oh, come on. Let's get some interaction here.
I know.
He's just standing there like this.
I know. It's
like
territory.
Write some roles for these guys.
I know. We got a hot take here from Jordan. Says the "We Want Truth" chants are not just about our truth, but rather a rallying cry for fans to show their displeasure with TKO's decision making over the last year or so.
Yeah, wow, that's actually pretty good. It's like sort of a CM Punk deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like so there was that one, like the first show after he made that announcement. Apparently in the arena, it was much more pronounced than on TV.
Oh, okay.
Then the SmackDown happened and it was a little bit less. They did it on NXT.
Mm-hmm.
I still maintain that within about a month it had been gone. I feel like that's probably commensurate with how people feel about TKO. It's like, hey, we really like what you're doing because we keep on showing up and we appreciate the wrestlers and a lot of people are over, but ticket prices are high, got all these ads. Let's pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah.
You're not perfect. The honeymoon season is over.
Mm-hmm.
And like, we're cool with you, but like you're
starting to get on thin ice a little bit.
Well, yeah, you're starting to get to the point where you might be getting to thin ice.
Yeah.
I could see that.
That could be that it was the situation with R-Truth was kind of a tipping point.
To finally the crowd being like, hey, all right.
You've gone too far. You're trying to separate every nickel and dime from me as a fan.
And you're not even re-signing R-Truth.
And you're not even re-signing, or if you made an attempt to, it was apparently a pay cut.
Like, look.
While you're wildly successful, as Triple H says, WWE is what, Steve?
On fire. It's like, you want my money, then I need to see value. You want my money, I need to see all of what you got in catering. It's got to be really good. These seats need to be a little more plush. I want to know what you're doing with this money.
Yeah, exactly.
I gave you a bunch of money. Do something with it.
Do something with it that is positive.
It's not just lining the. It's not just
padding
the stock price
of the C-suite executives up there.
Yeah, exactly.
Doing stock buybacks or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Mr. Sammy Sandman with the hot takes is just reading through all these hot takes. Why is no one mentioning AEW anymore? Has the company dropped that badly that no one wants to talk about it? So before we get into this, there were 2 hot takes saying that Darby would be a trash world champion. I'm paraphrasing.
Wow. Okay.
And one saying that what Hangman, Swerve, and Ospreay is doing right now is the best story in wrestling currently.
I feel like that's every week. We have those same 2 hot takes.
Basically.
So what is your theory about why we don't get, because I have some theories.
Because I think what AEW is doing right now is a vast improvement over what they were doing a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it's very good.
Good.
But I just don't know if there's anything on what regarding what they're doing that if people pull a hot take, out of their posterior and put it up there, people are like, oh my gosh, what are you even talking about? Or yeah, you're right. It'd be like, okay. So like the Darby thing, we see that every week.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And we talked about it several times.
Yeah.
That seems to be the one we get on a regular basis. The other one is a lot of praise for Hangman and Swerve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And deservedly so.
Yeah.
But the thing is at least when it comes to Hangman or Swerve, praising them is not exactly is deserved, but it's not really a hot take, and that it's not going to generate a lot of debate because pretty much anybody who watches AEW will be in full agreement with that.
Yeah.
And we've talked about the Darby thing endlessly. There's no point in revisiting that. I just don't see a lot of other hot takes
about
AEW.
In my opinion, you and I are kind of in alignment to a degree. I was gonna say, right now AEW is very consistent without ever being spectacular.
I almost used that exact word. I almost did.
They don't run big angles or twists and turns anymore. They rely on very simple storytelling, very effective storytelling, but very simple storytelling that doesn't elicit, and this is exactly what you said, it just doesn't elicit hot takes. Number two, our audience is a reflection of our product. Maybe last week we ran a thumbnail with AEW on it on the AEW review episode, but the review episodes are now, we do news and we do NXT and AEW, and we do what you guys want us to talk about. What do we have? Last week we had Karrion Kross WWE update and Mariah May debuts in NXT on the thumbnail for an episode that included our AEW Dynamite review.
Yeah.
We talk about WWE far more than we do AEW.
So, sorry to interrupt. The last time we had anything AEW that wasn't an AEW pay-per-view, obviously, on a thumbnail was just a news story about Will Ospreay shooting on WWE, and that was early May.
Okay,
but in terms of an actual thumbnail that had AEW represented on it, that was a review of Dynamite. You got to go back a ways.
Yeah, and it's
April. I think it's April.
And,
April.
And honestly, that's just it's interesting to me when people look at that as an indictment of AEW, and it's not. It's simply we generate our thumbnails based on what we talk about. And what we talk about, we need to make sellable. We need to make viewable, because we've got a bottom line to maintain here as well for us to continue doing it. And AEW, it's just not, in certain parlance, it's not sexy enough. And that's okay. It's a very enjoyable show. I thoroughly enjoy Dynamite. Yeah, it is. And so there's very little that I don't like about Dynamite. But it's also, it's not going to grab eyeballs. People know it's there. I do need to do a better job of time stamping those episodes so the people who are just there for the Dynamite review. But, we got criticized. There was somebody in our, criticized us last week for saying, we barely do, I think, was it on, I don't know where it was. We barely do AEW reviews anymore. We do Dynamite every single week. We do every pay-per-view. Not a lot happens on Collision. No. Now, if you're upset that we don't advertise on the thumbnail that there's an AEW review in there, that's just our business. Like, it's there. What does it matter if it's on the thumbnail or not? We're not disrespecting it. Nope. We're trying to get eyeballs on us so that we can make a living doing this. And it's not any disrespect towards AEW.
Not at all.
There you go.
Time for the music hot take, Steve.
Ooh.
First one here from Heel Heat.
Heel Heat.
Says Alice in Chains EPs were better than their full-length albums.
Man, I don't know about that one, dude. What's your take on that?
I think Dirt is the best thing they ever did.
Yeah. I think I agree with that.
But after that, I might put the two EPs above their other two, with Lane Staley as the singer, of course. The other two.
Sap
and Jar of Flies. Yeah.
And Jar of Flies.
Sap's got some good stuff on it.
Jar of Flies was in 94. That had No Excuses on it? Yeah, Jar of Flies was the shit.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that wasn't an LP.
No,
I thought that wasn't
6 songs on there or something like that.
Yeah. All right, well, that's interesting. Hold on a second. I want to take a look at this really quick. Heaven beside you and hell within. So No Excuses was not on that album.
Nope, it's just on Jar of Flies.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Dirt's the best thing they did. I mean, how can you start with Them Bones and not be the best thing ever? Like, goddamn, putting that song on, it just like shocks you.
Yeah, I know.
Hey!
I know. And that riff,
I
it's
bleed
heavy.
them bones. What does that even mean? It's
know.
horrifying. Yeah, Jar of Flies. Jar of Flies is probably my second favorite thing of theirs.
You gotta get more familiar with Sap. There's some good stuff on there. There's like a track on there that's got Lane, Jerry Cantrell, Chris Cornell.
Is it Got Me Wrong?
No. It's like...
Am I Inside?
No.
Right Turn?
That one. And Mark Arm from Mudhoney, all on it.
All right, I'm going to check that out as soon as we're done here, man.
There you go.
There you go.
Victimizer here says, OK Computer by Radiohead is the best album front to back made in the 90s.
Yeah, it might be my favorite album of all time, to be honest with you.
Well, 90s is pretty stacked for music, man.
Yeah, but OK Computer is the
No, it's up
shit.
there.
That
It's
is
up
the
there.
fucking shit.
I'd have to really think about that one, though.
That is that album is amazing.
I know, I've listened to it thousands of times, probably.
Yeah,
It's fantastic.
absolutely.
It's top 10 at least.
And the other tracks that they recorded during that time?
Yeah, the How Is My Driving EP is loaded with just stuff just as good.
Yeah. No, I would probably rank that number one above everything else, to be honest with you.
Above 10?
Yeah, above 10.
Steve, I got a hot take for you.
Go ahead.
I've been listening to Vitalogy a lot lately.
Oh, wow.
That might be my favorite Pearl Jam album.
I'll have to check that out again, man.
Yeah.
Vitalogy, it's Better Man kills me on that one, though. It starts off great.
The first half is awesome.
Yeah, honestly, if you just get rid of Better Man, I'll probably be happy with it.
Just skip it then.
Because Last Exit's great, Spin the Black Circle's great, Not For You is great. Wait, where's Better Man? Better Man's not on the... Oh, Better Man's not till the end?
It's in the second half, yeah.
Why did I think that was in the first half? Tremor Christ is cool.
Yeah.
Oh, Nothing Man. Shut up and something.
Yeah. What about it?
Man. Get rid of that one.
Yeah, I'm not huge.
You don't believe in a story she has to say.
Oh, you should do that karaoke then.
If you and I go to karaoke, 1,000% I'll do that. We'll put
we'll
up
do
for
that.
patrons. The Whipping.
Great song.
You like Whipping?
Heck yeah.
Should they have
Song's
opened
awesome.
with Whipping in Sacramento? Would you have paid $800?
No, there's nothing that Pearl Jam could have played over the course of the entire set that would have paid $800.
I got bugs in my head. I don't understand.
Second half of the album's a little weirder than the first, but there's good stuff in the second half.
That's a solid top four right there. That's a solid first four songs. And they're like, and I'm sitting there like, Eddie, we got to get rid of this Nothing Man bullshit. Go right into Whipping.
Yeah.
Go from Trevor.
Oh,
come on, how do you not go from Tremor Christ into Whipping? It's thematic.
Like if that album was just all of like the rockin' tracks.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
10 out of 10.
Hey, that's your hot take right there, man. Yeah, because hey, I actually like Immortality. That's a good song.
Yeah, it's a good song. If you keep that as one slow song on the album.
Yeah. I agree with that. I got bugs in my head. Oh, I like Satan's Bed too.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's a rockin' track.
It is a rockin' track. Yeah, that's a good one, man. That's a good one.
All right, we got one last one here. Ozzy says, I think the grunge part of Hot Take should have its own overlay. Imagine like the Friendo Club one. Instead of all the W wrestlers, you have like Eddie, Chris Cornell, Lane Staley, Jerry Cantrell, Kurt Cobain, Dave Grohl, I guess, Mark Arm,
It'll be ready by next week.
Jeff Ament,
Oh man, I got
Dave Abruzzi's.
I'm putting Mark Lanigan number one.
There you go. Put Mark Lanigan on there.
Man, his work with Queens of the Stone Age is so legit. I like
Yeah,
the
it's really
Screaming
good.
Tree stuff, but
really
his Queens of Stone Age shit is awesome, man.
There you go.
Yeah, I like him. Rest in peace, Mark Lanigan.
Yep.
He was
Yep.
cool.
Yep.
Anyways, that is going to do it for the show today. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We appreciate it. You know what we should do? We should have Rob do a grunge theme song for our grunge hot takes.
Hey, what about the old 10 for the Win theme that I did? That's
Yeah.
basically radio-friendly unit shifter.
Yeah. We need
Seems
some
that.
lyrics on it, though.
Sure. All
We need
right.
some lyrics on it. All right. Anyways, and maybe we'll make millions trying to replicate Eddie Vedder like everybody else did. All right. That's going to do it for the show. Thanks, everybody, for your hot takes. We appreciate it. Till next time, we'll see you guys around.
Goodbye.